Down but not out. Ailing Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika insists on running for a fifth term. As angry protesters demand an end to his 20-year rule. But who's really in charge in Algeria? And what does it risk for the region if the tension escalates? This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Richelle Carey, and this is Inside Story. Welcome to the program. Unfit for the job. That's how hundreds of thousands of Algerians describe President Abdelaziz Bouteflika. And in large-scale protests rarely seen in Algeria, they've poured onto the streets demanding he pull out of next month's elections. Many say Bouteflika, who was 82 on Saturday, is unable to perform his duties as president. So will he step down, or is Algeria heading towards political instability? We'll speak to our guests in a moment. First, Neve Barker has this report.
They are the biggest demonstrations in Algeria in decades. This is the country's capital, Algiers. There are similar scenes in several other cities. They're demanding the country's ailing President Abdelaziz Bouteflika withdraws from the country's forthcoming presidential election. The student-led protests have been growing in recent days, ever since the 81-year-old leader issued a statement announcing his intention to run for a fifth term. Algerian journalists have also joined the growing demonstrations, calling for greater press freedom and political reform. Bouteflika was elected president in 1999. But after suffering a debilitating stroke 6 years ago, he's rarely seen in public and hasn't given a speech in years. Here he is in 2017. Too frail to cast his ballot without help. Demonstrators say he's too weak to lead. It's widely believed the country's really run by a group of military and civilian advisors who failed to find a successor to ensure the continuity of the country's leading party, the National Liberation Front. The party's repeatedly said the elections will be free and transparent.
One needs to understand that it's not him who really is the target of the challenge. It's the group behind him, the group in the presidency, backed up by the so-called economic barons, the leading businessmen in Algeria, and the army and the security services, who are trying to foist on the country their own choice to guarantee their continuity in power. And that's what Algerians really object to.
Bouteflika presided over the end of the bloody Algerian civil war in 2002 and a return to international affairs following decades of isolation. But demonstrators say it's time for Algeria's longest-serving head of state to retire from politics. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera.
Let's take a look at some of the key events in Algeria's political history. In 1962, the country gained its independence from France, and more than 1 million French fled the country. In 1988, thousands of Algerian youth took to the streets against the country's economic conditions during a major recession. A decade-long civil war began in 1991 between the Algerian government and various armed Islamic rebel groups. Tens of thousands of people were killed. And then in 1999, Abdelaziz Bouteflika was elected president, and the civil war ended 3 years later. Let's bring in our panel now in Algiers via Skype. Journalist Hamdi Baala. In Rabat, Noufal Abboud, Executive Director of the Nordic Center for Conflict Transformation. Also in Algiers on the line is Amel, Boubekeur, a sociologist and researcher at the Paris-based School for Advanced Studies in the Social Sciences. Welcome to all of you. Hamdi, I'm going to start with you. You say that these protests were a long time coming. How so?
Well, Algerians have been frustrated with the way the government manages all areas of life for a long time. Widespread corruption, incompetence in all areas of life. But Algerians have kept mainly silent for 20 years now under Bouteflika, mainly because the economic situation was a little bit better. The final straw was the announcement of Bouteflika's bid for re-election in next April. Algerians don't want to be governed by an absent president no more, and that is why people are protesting. Bouteflika hasn't been able to speak nor work. He hasn't given a speech to Algerians since 2013, and that is why people are protesting now, even though they were frustrated with the government and with Abdelaziz Bouteflika for so long.
Noufal, do you agree with that as well, that this has been brewing for a while?
Yes, this has been going for a while, and I think the Algerian people chose the moment and their claim. I think that there are sharp asymmetric positions here between a new generation that does not necessarily lived the atrocities of war, of independence, and the civil war as well, and the deep state that has been there for a long period of time. I think the Algerian people chose this moment. They chose their fight, and they believe that this time they can actually win over Bouteflika. They have one claim, it's Bouteflika, and they chose their fight.
Before I get to Amel, actually, Noufal, let me follow up on something you said. Explain how you mean the term deep state, because it means different things in different countries. Explain what you mean when you use that term.
Well, deep states, as we understand it here in the case of Algeria, is all agree that the claim of people is not necessarily against Bouteflika's government. Bouteflika does not really govern the country. There are people around who support a state of power. They're pushing towards some kind of continuation of a state of power the way it is now. So all of those, the deep state, in my opinion, in Algeria are those who are behind the scenes that pushing and hiding behind Bouteflika to say that whatever it is in the country is because of Bouteflika. What I believe that deep state here will try to do, in the end, if they see that the protest of the Algerian people will be strong enough, they are, I think, ready to let Bouteflika go, but they will negotiate some kind of power settlement with the people.
Okay. Amel, same question to you. Did you feel like that was something like this just a matter of time, or are you surprised?
Well, I think that's the result of the long history, of course, but what we have witnessed so far is really an effort to control change. Each time Algerians have been asking for change, in 62, 88, 91, whatever demands of change were taken from them to serve the regime's interest. In 88, it was like, you want free elections? Well, then elect wherever you want, but then we will stop the electoral process. You want no more military in power? Then we will bring the so-called civil president. You want more social justice? Then we will have a rentier redistribution. So really, self-control was the key word during the demonstrations these past weeks, and that could be seen in the willingness to make the protest itself. You could see families in the ranks of the protesters and demonstrators, happiness, solidarity. I mean, you could not feel really, that's not a revolutionary tension, that you could feel, but rather a really joyful Independence Day. There was also an effort to control or improve the relationship between the protesters and the police. You could see a lot of citizens discussing with policemen, trying to argue with them, trying to convince them that they should join the ranks of the demonstrations. Protesters handling bottles of Coca-Cola in order to dissipate the tear gas to policemen, for example, tear gas effect. That could be seen also in the effort to avoid external manipulation. I think these protests are also taken by the other Algerians as an opportunity to build or to restore the image that the rest of the world has of them. So they really wanted to give an image of a major people, of a politically major people that is able to control its demands for change.
So, Hamdi, about this energy that she is describing, why are some Algerians not afraid anymore?
I don't think Algerians were afraid, not of the government. I think most Algerians were probably traumatized by the memory of the civil war in the 90s. This is why one of the main themes of these protests has been the fact that they are peaceful. They are saying to the government that they want change. They are challenging the system. They want to participate in public life, in political life, but they are saying it is a peaceful protest, and they don't want the situation to go wrong. I don't think people have been afraid. I think people just didn't want things to go wrong like they did in other countries in the region.
Noufal, do you see any similarities between what is happening now in Algeria and some of the Arab Spring countries?
I think one of the similarities is the involvement, like I said, of deep state. Deep state that is looking for a status of power, and the new generation of young people who have different aspirations and needs, and they want to change in the most peaceful way. This is also to say that for every country have their own way of doing things and to pick their fights. I think in Algeria this time, they are no longer afraid because they think that they're going to win. And I would not be surprised if Bouteflika steps down in the next few days or few weeks. And the second thing, what is very important, is when there are some changes in the intelligence and the military. We have seen, for example, Bouteflika having changed many people in the Secret Service and intelligence as well as in the military, and those people have grievances, and I think they are joining or supporting people's claims. We need to understand that a little bit more. It's similar to other countries as well.
Amel, who are, Noufal has mentioned this a couple of times, who are these people that are, who is really running the country? Who is it that has decided that Bouteflika needs to run again, even if he is incapacitated? And if whoever these people are want to maintain power so much, why haven't they picked a successor to have avoided all of this?
I think the lack of plan B, if I can put it that way, is really linked to the deep nature of the regime itself. In 1999, when they brought Bouteflika back and they put it in power, the idea was to make the international community forget about war crimes committed by the army and the secret services. So they gave the image of a civil president. And the stability argument and the credibility of the civil state was so deeply linked to the figure of Bouteflika that it was obvious that they won't be able to find a way out, that nobody would be able to replace Bouteflika. But I believe now that's not really the question. I think that there's no doubt that Bouteflika won't run again. The real question is the Algerian people ready to accept fake transitions organized from the top and controlled from the top, as it has been the case?
Wait, say that. You said fake transitions?
Fake transitions, or a masquerade of transition, and the way transitions controlled from the top. So the idea now is not to talk about Bouteflika anymore. It's really about what are they going to do next, and are they going to offer to the people another candidate from their own ranks that will be, as Bouteflika at that time, supposedly incarnating a civil state or a renewal of Algerian politics. I'm not sure that Algerian people will accept that. They are very conscious about this.
Hamdi, what about that? She makes a good point that, yeah, there may end up being somebody else replacing Bouteflika, but at the core, it may still all be business as usual. Does the army having so much power play a role in this? I mean, at what point will the army ever pull back?
Well, I think it has to do with how much people are willing to stay, for how long people are willing to stay mobilized. I've seen in the protests I've been to, most people are not just demanding an end or are not just protesting against Bouteflika's bid for election. They want to change the regime. They want a new political offer. I don't know if the army will stay out of what's coming next, whether Bouteflika steps down or not. But I will say that if people maintain the same pressure they've been put in this past week, I think the army will have to rethink its position.
Noufal, if to Hamdi's point, if people do maintain this pressure or if the pressure even escalates, how do you anticipate the army responding to that?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to say that the Algerian people have wisdom, have patience, and have experience. And I think they're going to negotiate every step at a time. Now they have been clear that they want the President Bouteflika down. The reaction of the army in itself, there are a lot of questions about the position of the army, especially after the reconstruction of the army and the changes that occurred in the time of Bouteflika. What I would think is that they will give a concession, in my opinion, and support the step down of Bouteflika. The question is later on how the political future of Algeria will be negotiated and who will be included in that negotiation.
Yeah, that was exactly going to be my question is, who is right now the leader of what is happening? Who is the person to push for these changes? I mean, obviously there are mass protests, but is there a single voice?
I don't think it's yet organized well, this protest yet. There are things I believe that they are behind the scenes, and there must be some kind of support behind the scenes. I see the Algerian people are confident to win this time, and they're confident that there will be a step down of Bouteflika. I think, and my assumption is that those people who have been laid off from the intelligence and the army could be supporting people's claim. But until now, the protests are not organized, yet strong.
Amel, what role do other countries play in this? Obviously, there's a lot of countries that have an interest in what happens in Algeria. There are countries, I'm sure, that are concerned that what happens in Algeria might spill over into other countries, as we've seen with Libya and some of their other neighbors. What role do you see other countries playing in trying to manage what is happening in Algeria?
Yeah, sure. I would just like to make a point just before answering that question on the leadership.
Sure.
I think it's not a problem for the army. I think it's not a real problem for the army and the secret services that there's no leadership. They have been repressing, actually, independent actors that have been trying, and opposition parties that have been trying to take the wave, as they said in Algeria, of the protest and to join in the protest and to give some lead, or at least to emerge as individual figures from this protest. It's also an opportunity for the army and the secret services to have the Algerian people to take a breath, and then they are hoping that they will come back home. They will get back home after having taken that breath of freedom and demonstration. Now, the real question is about the willingness of the Algerians to accept the same people to continue or to go on with the same institutions, not transparent institutions. So that will be an important point to discuss in the future. To answer the question of the external actors, I think this is the sign at 8 years after the Arab Spring that really the U.S. and the EU are totally lost and totally disconnected from the Arab people or the Middle East or North Africa people demands for change. They have been tackling the issue solely to the question of anti-terrorism, specifically for Algeria, and immigration policies. I mean, that's absolutely not what is discussing currently. So if they want to be in line with the change that is going to take place in the country and the region, they will have to connect with the people directly and to discuss and maybe to cooperate on the kind of transparent institutions they need, but absolutely not to solely discuss with the elite as they have been doing so far.
Hamdi, might some of the other are there other candidates that could benefit from what is happening right now with the protesters?
Well, I think the point of the protests is that there are no real elections. Elections are not transparent, are not fair. Bouteflika's bid for re-election was interpreted as a de facto fifth term for Bouteflika. So whether there are serious candidates is not really important right now. If the regime decides to change course, there probably will be a change in the political calendar. The election might be postponed. But,
no, I understand. So what you're saying it's not even necessarily about another specific candidate. It's just about this particular moment of saying it cannot be him anymore.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Okay. Noufal, are you concerned that this could spiral into any type of chaos or spiral out of control if these protesters are determined not to back down?
I think conflict starts with sometimes in small details, and the small details can take the conflict either to a new set of cooperation or to violence. And I am a little bit concerned because there is a very thin line between the fantasy of stability that is offered by autocratic regime and the problems of regime change. That fine line, the way it will be negotiated, very important. And if not all the groups who have been feeling marginalized and not heard for so many years are not included, I fear that it might lead to some kind of violence. And I hope that it's not going to get to that.
That's a great point you made. Amel, he's basically saying there's always this push-pull between stability and democracy, even though they're not necessarily mutually exclusive. Often people play on it to make it seem like they are. Do you think that that is what has been at play, is that people have wanted stability, so they put off wanting democracy, but what has the stability actually gotten them?
I think we should not be mistaken. Algerians are still willing to get stability. They are not looking for revolution. And even if we have millions of people in the street this past weeks, a lot of people have been afraid also to join the protest. So I think the real what is at stake at the moment is really about the continuity and the repetition of the protest, the way protesters will be able to control the protest and to make themselves, and also to have other people join, even at a local level. I think the local level will be very crucial for the next weeks to join the protest and to organize themselves. And of course, we have seen that in Tunisia, which is supposedly the success of the Arab Spring, we won't get rid of the old elites so easily. But that's not the most important. The most important is to have an agreement on the transparency of the institutions and the continuity of the democratic process. I mean, as my colleague said it, they don't want another elections with the same candidates. They want conditions that will make them able to have transparent elections, and that's not the priority right now.
All right, Hamdi, you sound, if I'm correct, you sound very confident. Sounded very confident that Bouteflika will, in fact, not stand for a fifth term. But change is. Did I get that right? Was that your assessment?
I don't know, actually. I don't know whether Bouteflika will step down on that. What I know is the pressure is enormous right now on the president and on the political establishment in the country not to present Bouteflika for a fifth term.
Thank you very much to all of our guests for the conversation, Hamdi Baala, Noufal Abboud, and Amel Boubekeur. And thank you all for watching. You can see the program again anytime if you visit our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. For me, Richelle, Carey, and the entire team, bye for now.